on Studio One, we'll tell you what demographic is changing the housing market and why. Also meet one man who lived out a Special Olympics athlete's dream. And twin artists change the way a landscape is captured on canvas.
From the University of North Dakota, this is Studio One, celebrating 25 years.
Hi everyone and welcome to Studio One. I'm Monty Cashel.
And I'm Ann Hook. You know, Monty, even though public relations and journalism is a communication field, they do kind of tend to clash from time to time.
Yeah, you know, they have to work together a lot.
Because even though one may write for a company, the other writes for news coverage, they still, you know, they find themselves at odds from time to time. But today on the show, we are going to be having a public relations person who co-authored a book with a journalist, and she's going to talk about what really do they have in common. All right, we'll look forward to that. Also on the show, part of the American dream is to own your own home. We'll tell you why single women are making the financial move more often than men. And many people get henna tattoos for fun. Unlike real tattoos, they are not permanent. Later, we will talk to a woman who will show us how to make a henna tattoo. Before we get to all of that, here's today's news with Allie Strand.
Thanks, Monty and Ann. A Pennsylvania woman who had gone missing 11 years ago has reappeared in Florida. At the time of Brenda Heist's disappearance, she was facing financial and marriage issues. Heist says she decided to walk out on her life, family, and problems. She joined two homeless hitchhikers on their southbound journey. Heist left behind two children who are now adults and a husband who has since remarried. The family has not yet tried to contact her. Investigators are still searching for answers on what caused the 747 plane crash in Afghanistan on Monday. The U.S.-based cargo carrier was departing en route to Dubai when the crash occurred, killing 7 crew members. The Taliban quickly claimed responsibility for shooting down the aircraft, but NATO says the claims are false and there are no signs of insurgent activity in the area. The cause of the crash is still to be determined. Reduce, replace, eliminate. Those are 3 words changing transportation. Fuel technology companies have been turning to natural gas to power vehicles. The North Dakota Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition says North Dakota produces over 200 million gallons of natural gas per day. That could fuel up to 800,000 vehicles, which is equal to the number of vehicles in the entire state of North Dakota. Natural gas is relatively inexpensive. It costs about 70 cents per gallon compared to gasoline at $4 per gallon.
I would like to see North Dakota benefiting from a less expensive fuel by becoming more competitive for the products that we make here in this state.
Natural gas fills a car the same way gasoline fills a car. Experts say by reusing the same gas stations, natural gas will provide the same convenience to the public. What could appear as a simple dare among teenagers might prove to be dangerous. The American Academy of Pediatrics are warning parents and children of the cinnamon challenge. Thousands of YouTube videos show teens swallowing ground cinnamon in 1 minute without water. Eating the spice causes throat irritation, trouble breathing, and even collapsed lungs. In the past year, the number of Poison Control Center calls related to the challenge quadrupled from 51 to over 200. Cinnamon is made from tree bark and contains cellulose fibers, making it difficult to swallow. In the past, women were traditionally known as homemakers, but times have changed and now they're home owners.
Now, more than ever before, single ladies aren't waiting for a man to put a ring on it. Instead of waiting to start a family to purchase property, women are making large financial investments on their own.
I mean, this was an investment property for me in the fact that I didn't want to waste a bunch of money on rent.
Jessica Peterson is 27.
Are you done?
Works full-time, is finishing her master's, and has owned her own home for 3 years.
I was single. I didn't have anything else to have to really depend on a family to support, so I could spend some money on my house, but I was able to kind of do it slowly too, so I didn't make any silly decisions.
The National Association of Realtors says that in 2012, single women bought 1 out of every 5 homes sold in America. This was twice as many as single men. Experts think the reason for the rising numbers is the social shift that has reshaped American life.
Women have been associated with homes more than men have. Women have been associated with private life. Men have been associated with public life.
Demographic changes that have affected the real estate market include women marrying later in life and women living longer than men. The equality shift in the career world also allows more women to provide for themselves on their income.
Apparently they have it. Apparently there's enough women that have this now. And they are able to make their own home, not just a family home.
So I'm glad that I took the chance on actually becoming a homeowner, and it's paid off. So I've liked it a lot.
Women all across the country are taking pride in doing something that their moms only dreamed of.
The National Association of Realtors say that 2/3 of female buyers own single-family homes as opposed to condos or townhomes. And that's the news for now. Monty and Ann?
Thanks, Allie. Well, you know, every time someone utters the word spring, I think a winter storm crops up somewhere in the United States.
I know. Well, we're going to hear more from Kellen Peters over in the weather studio about what constitutes some severe weather. Kellen?
Yeah, thanks, Ann and Monty. It is Severe Weather Awareness Week across North Dakota, so we're going to be talking a little bit about tornado formation. So it all starts out with our cumulonimbus cloud, you know, where all those thunderstorms and severe activity is. Get a strong inflow of wind. Now, once it enters this cloud, a lot of activity going on, so a very strong shear as well. This wind is almost rotating around the cylinder, the best way to describe it. But if we get a backside wind component to almost force this thing to tilt it almost, because this is where things start to get real interesting. Because if we have a strong downdraft to force this down, now we can start seeing, excuse me, a strong downdraft. We could possibly see even a funnel cloud or even a tornado as well. I mentioned a little bit earlier that it is Severe Weather Awareness Week, so we do have some safety tips here for you. If you are indoors, important to go to the basement or an interior room. If you're out in your car, try to get to a building if you are able to, or drive away at right angles. But if you're outside just in general by yourself, get to the lowest area possible, even if it's a roadside ditch, as long as it is away from cars and trees. Temperature outlook, you're going to see that it's going to be warmer out west, central part of the United States, a little bit cooler than average. Should be picking up as we move more into the month of May. Also, it's going to be dry out west, and you can see our spots across the United States where it could be above average. If we are talking about spring-like weather, on average, how many tornadoes strike the U.S. annually? Anywhere, for our answers range anywhere from 200 to 800, but we will have our answer coming up a little bit later in the show.
All right. That's a lot of twisters, Kellen.
A lot of them.
Yeah, and of course we always hear about them. I mean, they're a dangerous storm that comes through,
Quite
unfortunately.
a cyclone.
Yeah. All right, well, let's turn to some NHL highlights and Brian Gendro.
Thanks, Monty and Ann. As summer approaches, it means two things for young male athletes: no school and baseball. One hot button issue brought up at the last Little League World Series was pitch count and the amount of curveballs being thrown. Experts say if young pitchers are throwing too many curveballs, it could lead to injuries in the future. The American Sports Medicine Institute now says that mechanics and form are more important than the type of pitch thrown. Coaches believe that pitching mechanics are built from the ground up and must be taught properly at a young age.
Kids, when they're young, they want to throw curveballs. They think it's cool, think it's interesting, but most of them aren't ready to throw curveballs to begin with. They have to get the mechanics down first.
A step taken to ensure the well-being of the players is setting a strict pitch count. Hurlers 14 and under must take 4 days of rest after throwing more than 66 pitches. The number of pitches increases with age. It's now time for the Studio One Sports Trivia question. How many major professional sports teams are located in California? You have 4 choices there, and the answer to that question will be coming up later in the show. That's the sports for now. Monty and Ann?
Thanks, Brian. In a new action movie, Tony Stark's world is torn apart by a formidable terrorist. Seeking revenge, Stark embarks on an odyssey to defeat evil. Robert Downey Jr. stars in the sequel, Iron Man 3. We'll preview that film.
And you can find tattoo artists just about anywhere. Our next guest is a different type of tattoo artist. She'll show us how to make a henna tattoo.
Hi, I'm Julie Beck. We're at the TV production company Rocket in Oslo, Norway, where I get to do casting, research, and directing. I am a Studio One and UND alum. Congratulations, Studio One, on 25 great years. Keep up the amazing work, and thanks for everything that you have taught me. Bye!
Life is busy. But many professionals are finding ways to advance their career with a Master's in Business Administration at the University of North Dakota. Students attend UND online and on campus. The program is nationally recognized and emphasizes one-on-one with faculty. Find the title you deserve. Enroll today.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it, 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
From the University of North Dakota, this is Studio One, your source for news, weather, and entertainment.
Henna is made from a shrub. People first started using it as hair dye and nail polish. Eventually it turned into henna tattoos. Henna tattoo artist Natasha Thomas is here to show us how to do a henna. Thanks for coming on the show today. I have to mention, Amanda's sitting here on a stool getting ready to get the tattoo
ready to
done.
get inked.
But first of all, you know, what is henna? Explain that to us.
Well, like you mentioned, henna is a shrub. So it grows in the Middle East and parts of India. There are 14 countries that have henna documented somewhere in their history. So it's a little shrub that grows maybe about like as high as this table here. And it has little tiny green leaves, and some of them have flowers, like little whitish, pinkish sort of flowers. And what happens is they harvest the leaves, so they pluck the leaves off of this little shrub, they dry them, and then you mix it with lemon juice and a couple other little essential oils and things, and you get this paste. It's sort of like toothpaste.
Sounds good enough to eat, but we're not going to eat it today. No. I'd like to ask you, what do you need to do henna? And I noticed you brought some things with you.
Yeah, I brought some stuff. So obviously the henna itself, ground up henna leaves and some lemon juice and sugar and all of those little essential oils. So I get mine pre-mixed. So this is something, we have a friend of the family from Malaysia that she just brings this back with her, and then she gives me the tubes. So it's already pre-mixed together. But in addition to that, I always like to have a little extra lemon juice and sugar to help it set a little more easily. And then afterwards, I have in a little vial here some olive oil that I put on that helps to sort of guard against if you're showering and stuff like that and you want to keep it for a little while. That's good.
I'd like to show our viewers what a finished henna tattoo looks like before we start into on Amanda's new henna tattoo. But how long does this henna have to sit on your hand before it takes?
Yeah, this tattoo itself is about 4 days old, and so I did the ink. That art took about like maybe 45 minutes, and then the henna had to sit for 4 to 5 hours.
All right.
And so I have underneath my thumb here is a wrapped piece that's been sitting for about 4 to 5 hours, so you can see what happens.
It's not a boo-boo, it's actually...
not a boo-boo, it's actually,
Well, let's start drawing on Amanda here. So what are the steps first?
So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I have a steady stream, because you never want to start drawing on somebody somebody and then just squirt henna all over them. It won't set, but it just looks kind of gross. So I like to sort of on a little bit of, there you go, so on a little bit of toilet paper, because it's nice and clean, I have a little squirt there, so now I know I have a steady stream. And we were looking at art designs a little earlier, so she picked out this little Arabic flower that we're going to put on her. Arabic flowers are pretty common. In henna,
is there a standard henna design?
No, there are multiples. You can always have different designs that you like, but the Arabic flower is a really common one in parts of the Middle East, and so that Arabic part of the world, they'll use those Arabic flowers a lot. In some of the Indian henna, you'll see more designs that are a little bit more, not quite geometrical, but you'll see more like parallel lines and sort of that really intricate sort of work comes more in Indian henna. So.
And it almost looks like you said, toothpaste, almost brown toothpaste, just laying on top of her arm.
Yeah.
Amanda, does it feel?
No, it
like
feels
anything?
fine.
Okay,
kind of tickles a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And it's a little bit cool as well. Like you'll notice temperature-wise that it's a little cool.
And is it starting to set into her, I guess, into her skin, into her pores already?
It is already. If I were to, you know, when I was first practicing, I mentioned we have that family friend from Malaysia, she let me practice on her, and I did a little design that took about 5 minutes, and she wiped it off, and you could already just see where it had set. Just a tiny, tiny bit it had set on her skin.
Well, how long do henna tattoos last once they are on your skin?
Yeah, once they're on, they'll last for up to a month, depending on where they are. The one on my hand probably won't last more than 2 weeks, just because we wash our hands a lot, or at least I hope we do. And so some of those don't last as long because you're washing them a lot.
Sure.
But the olive oil regimen helps to get them to last a little longer.
So what does the olive oil do? You put it on top and it...
Yeah, it's more of a barrier type of thing. So it doesn't actually do anything to your skin. It just provides a nice little barrier between your skin and any moisture. And so as you're showering, as you're washing your hands and stuff like that, it doesn't get into the henna.
So let's say Amanda really doesn't like the design after you're finished. Can she get rid of this henna tattoo faster than...
I have this this soap that I carry around with me called lava soap, and it's adequately named, I think, because it really does just anything that's on your skin, it just gets rid of. So I find for henna, because henna does set pretty deep and it'll last a little while, it won't get rid of all of it, but it'll at least make the process a little bit faster if you wash your hands with lava soap instead of regular soap.
And so how expensive are those tubes that you're using?
They're not very expensive at all, actually. You can get 10 of these for like 20 bucks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so
and
not
so
too expensive.
Are they readily, you get it from Malaysia, but are they readily available anywhere in the United States?
Yeah, there are some little stores will carry henna, and they'll carry them in tubes like this. Gita is a really popular brand of henna that you can find in a lot of little shops and stuff like that. I want to even say that one of the little multicultural shops in town here, the name escapes me at the moment, but I think they might even carry henna.
Well, what about, you know, I was doing a little bit of research on this, and you can have allergic reactions to henna.
You can, yeah.
And they say, you know, kids shouldn't get it done. Are there bad batches of henna?
There's something called black henna that some people will talk about and say, oh, it lasts longer, or you'll get a deeper color. And black henna is really dangerous because it's not really henna. It's henna that someone has added chemicals to, or things that are supposed to deepen the color and make it last longer. And the downside of that is you have an increased chance of allergic reactions, and they can actually burn your skin.
All right, so, really quickly, what should somebody do if they want to start getting into henna artistry like you have?
If you want to, get a friend from Malaysia. No, look online and just, you know, investigate different sorts of like reviews on different henna products and stuff like that. The brand name of this one, if people wanted to look for it, is Neha, N-E-H-A, N-E-H-A, and I really like it, and it does a good job.
Well,
so
Tasha, thank you so much for coming on. That looks awesome. I hope you like it, Amanda. All right. Thanks for coming on the show. Coming up, we'll tell you how one man went from local athlete to victor on the world stage. Also, artists are typically known for painting colorful designs on a canvas. We'll show you how two brothers use a unique approach to creating a masterpiece. That's next.
Studio One closed captioning is underwritten in part by Options, your disability information source.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
My doctor tells me to play outside every day.
I see a physician assistant in my rural clinic. I'm glad that she's here.
But healthcare is changing.
Rural North Dakota communities face workforce shortages, particularly in primary care. The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences addresses the state's healthcare needs by educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. We advocate for improved health in rural communities.
Your future depends on this moment. Take the path that leads to your future.
Iron Man is suiting up in armor again as he embarks on another journey. Marvel Comics movie Iron Man 3 is another sequel filled with adventurous superhero action. Robert Downey Jr. stars as the infamous Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man. When Stark finds his personal world destroyed by his enemy's hands, he sets off on a quest to find those responsible. With close calls at every turn, Stark is forced to rely on his instincts to protect those he loves.
He falls so far from where he was, but he needed to. So I think people relate to that life lessons part of it.
Shane Black is the new writer and director of the sequel. He says he enjoyed helping bring the franchise full circle. Iron Man 3 opens in theaters May 3rd with a PG-13 rating. Now it's time to look at the events happening in your area. Artists need passion and patience to create their work. Two brothers have what it takes and are collaborating, one stroke at a time.
Ryan and Trevor Oakes are not only twin brothers, but business partners as well. Although at first they were uncertain about their career goals, they soon discovered the path they wanted to take.
It became clear that art school was a worthwhile option, a valid option, I should say.
Most artists use traditional tools. However, these brothers came up with one of their own.
It's been rare that we've really been blown away by seeing new artists, but you blew us away with your work.
This concave easel is an Oakes brother invention. It is semi-spherical with metal strips in a grid-like structure.
You have a head stabilizing sort of cap that goes on your head that keeps your eye in the exact center point of the spherical curvature and keeps you very still. It sort of turns me into a tripod.
They are painting a series of horizon lines, and North Dakota has provided them with a flat plane, just like they wanted.
Have really gained national recognition, and they're making a name for themselves.
The recognition is not a driving factor or a target.
We want to be able to keep on doing art and exploring the ideas that we come up with without restriction. That's our goal. When you can really see the piece coming together, and is definitely one of the most exciting moments.
The unity between Ryan and Trevor has allowed them to break barriers and paint their future one stroke at a time. With photographer Alex Stadnick, I'm Katie Wilson, reporting for Studio One.
Ryan and Trevor are working on expanding their Horizon Line series. The paintings will be displayed in the North Dakota Museum of Art. Coming up, many drivers might ignore when floodwaters creep up to the roads. We'll tell you the risks of driving through as inches of water. That story plus news, sports, and weather in the next half hour of Studio One.
Hi, I'm Kelly Franson. I'm a meteorologist at WBTV in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I got my start at Studio One. Congratulations on 25 great years.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by NDAD, helping others to help themselves.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
Life is busy, but many professionals are finding ways to advance their career with a Master's in Business Administration at the University of North Dakota. Students attend UND online and on campus. The program is nationally recognized and emphasizes one-on-one with faculty. Find the title you deserve. Enroll today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
From the University of North Dakota, celebrating 25 years, this is Studio One.
Welcome back to Studio One.
Thanks for joining us today. Well, Apple's CEO Tim Cook is auctioning off 1 hour of his time over coffee. And all the proceeds to this auction go to charity. It's already up to $500,000 to sit down with the guy for
1 cup of Joe.
For 1 cup of Joe. So we went out and asked people, who would you like to sit down with if you could pay them a lot of money to have a cup of coffee? And your answers are coming up. Also in the next 30 minutes on Studio One, surveillance cameras can provide a sense of security or for some, paranoia. We'll tell you why some are concerned that Big Brother is watching.
Also, annual fly-ins are common in the spring and fun for the whole family. We'll talk to one man who not only flew planes for fun, but also for freedom.
And it can sometimes be hard to find common ground between public relations spokespeople and journalists. Later, we will meet a woman whose book describes the shared goals between the two fields. But first, here's today's news with Ali Strand.
Thanks, Monty and Ann. NBA player Jason Collins has become the first openly gay athlete in one of the 4 major sports. He revealed this information in an essay published in Sports Illustrated magazine on Sunday. Major public figures have shown support for the player, including Rachel Maddow, Anderson Cooper, and other athletes. He also received praise from the White House. This is the first time in Major League sports history that an active player has come out. Last month, a U.S. judge ordered an age limit be lifted for buying Plan B or the morning after pill without a prescription or parental consent. The Justice Department announced on Wednesday it's appealing the judge's decision. The appeal does not affect the Food and Drug Administration decision on Tuesday of the 15-year-old age limit. The FDA says their action was independent of the judge's order. The changes have angered several women's groups. They say both announcements highlight this administration's apparent willingness to cut corners on women's health. Prom is a tradition that is decades old, but one aspect keeps changing. The price of gowns leaves some customers feeling woozy. Inspired by celebrities and award-winning designers, prom dress shopping has increased in price over the past decade. A survey done by Visa Corporation shows the average family will spend roughly $1,100 per girl that attends prom. The most expensive item for the event is the prom dress.
I think it depends upon the girl. I think some girls are looking to stay within a certain price point, but most of my girls, if the dress that they fall in love with is not quite in their price point, they'll make up with it. So like if mom will pay $500, the girl will pay $150, something like that to kind of compensate for it.
Different banks and agencies around the world are starting to offer planning funds to families in an effort to make prom more affordable. First there were smartphones, and then there was smart water, and now there are smart forks. A new eating utensil is said to help in counting calories. It also helps users eat slower and potentially lose weight. The fork vibrates if the time between bites is shorter than 10 seconds as a reminder to slow down. It also can be used to track eating habits. Information such as length of meals and frequency of forkfuls can be synced with the Happy Fork app. The fork can stay charged for a total of 15 days. In the weeks following the Boston Marathon bombing, law officials are now looking at ways to prevent future attacks. But proposed security measures could raise privacy concerns for some Americans.
The April 15th bombing in Boston shook its streets and its people to the core. Now with one Tsarnaev brother dead and the other in custody, Americans are looking ahead at ways to spot future attacks.
If we can prevent another Boston from occurring just by using surveillance cameras, I think we're all, as a nation, better suited for that.
Terrorist attacks have often spurred growth in American security, but some are concerned Big Brother may infringe on their right to privacy. A Washington Post poll shows 48% of people worry the government will go too far. Others argue the expectation of privacy in public is unrealistic.
And you know, people right now, in this day and age, if you're in a public arena, you're pretty much fair game.
Supporters of the high-tech watchmen say with cell phone cameras and digital media, it's no longer that easy to blend in. Because in the information age, contacts and glasses aren't the only lenses putting the world into focus. This is Olivia Fox reporting for Studio One.
There are an estimated 30 million security cameras in the U.S. alone, and this number is expected to rise. Many security specialists are expecting a $3.2 billion growth in the video surveillance industry within the next year. And that's the news. Monty and Ann?
Thanks, Allie. Well, I said it earlier, but it seems like there's snowstorm after snowstorm, and it doesn't matter where you live, you're going to get hit.
All right, we're going to hear some more of that over in the land of the Rockies from Kellen Peters in the weather studio.
Thanks, Ann and Monty. Yeah, Colorado is the last victim for winter snow. Even though we're moving into the month of spring, and this happened earlier this week, the National Weather Service measured over 5 inches of snow in Boulder and other areas, including the western suburbs such as Golden and Fort Collins. They saw anywhere to 6 to 8 inches by the end of Wednesday. Now, Colorado Department of Transportation has over 75 plow trucks working through last Wednesday, so a very big mess going out in the Rocky Mountains. So you can see out in the area that they were seeing anywhere to 6 to 8 inches of snow. Interesting enough, the air quality advisory was issued for the blowing dust. There's very strong winds during this storm. Now the good news is, however, is that temperatures are expected to rise up into the 40s and 50s moving on into the weekend. But when that snow does start to melt, there sometimes can be some lingering water still on roads.
While growing up, many kids enjoy the simple entertainment of driving through big puddles of water. But the risks of driving in flooded areas may not be in mind.
The biggest factor involved is you driving through the water and possibly injuring yourself, doing damage to your vehicle or some other form of property, losing your life.
The National Flood Insurance Program says that the average four-door car can be swept away in as little as 2 feet of water. Sheriff Smith says that they typically close roads when water reaches unsafe levels.
We kind of weigh the risks involved with it, And when the water starts to rise, or if the road itself isn't in good condition.
Not only can flooding damage cars and people, it also causes harm to the road itself.
Whether it's gravel or asphalt, the road may be there in good shape when you leave or drive over it the first time, but when you come back through, the road may have washed away.
Flooding is involved in around 90% of all U.S. natural disasters and can be very dangerous.
It's better to weigh the risks out, and if you don't need to go in an area that you're unfamiliar with, don't do it.
So when it comes time to drive through those massive puddles, it could mean risk instead of adventure. I'm Tasha Olson reporting for Studio One.
That brings us back to our weather question of the week, and it is, on average, how many tornadoes occur in the U.S. annually? Now, our answers are anywhere from 200, 400, 600, or 800. The answer, interestingly enough, is 800 on average tornadoes annually in the U.S.
Oh my goodness. Thanks, Kellen.
Thank you.
And just hope that you're not in that path at all. All right, well, let's turn now to sports one last time. And Brian Gendro.
Thanks, Monty and Ann. It may seem a bit bizarre that the Athlete of the Year in North Dakota was an alpine skier from the eastern part of the state. But once you meet the big smile behind the ski mask, there's no doubt that this athlete is deserving.
There he is. There's my boy. Yeah! Look at those long legs. Isn't that cute? I always knew he was going to be a good runner.
Tommy Michelson has always been athletic.
He was feeling kind of left out. He was the manager for the basketball team, but they weren't letting him play, and it was really kind of just kind of sit here and watch kind of a thing.
I've had people come to me to say, I have a friend. The parents have said, Mom, they're just like me, I have a friend now.
We were driving home and he goes, I really like Special Olympics. These are my people. And I just thought, oh, it's so wonderful. He's so comfortable there, and he just, oh, he loves it.
Joining the Special Olympics 10 years ago has brought Tommy to the lifestyle he leads today. He has gained independence, athletic accomplishment, and a best friend.
That's a whole great thing. That's the meaning behind it for me, is to give people a relationship building avenue.
He's a good roommate, and he deserved going to Korea, and he did really good. I'm proud of him for the gold medal.
You heard right. This past winter, Tommy took home some hardware from overseas.
Represented my country and placed very well in the downhill skiing competition, and it takes a lot of work, but once you get really good at something, you can enjoy it for years to come.
He competed in the 2013 Special Olympics World Winter Games, taking home a gold medal in Super G, the speedy form of alpine slalom skiing.
It's been really fun. I hope more people get a chance out there to do something they want to accomplish.
Like any decorated athlete, Tommy says he's appreciative for the opportunities he has been given.
I want to thank all my family that have been supporting the son for years, and the grandson, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for family as well.
Of course, not everyone can win a gold medal, but one can set goals and reach them, just as Tommy has, with a smile on his face the whole way.
Hey, good job, Major.
Tommy placed in 2 other alpine events while at the World Winter Games. The Michelson family has taken annual trips to the mountains since he was 5. And now the answer to this week's Studio One Sports Trivia question: how many major professional sports teams are located in California? The answer is C, 15. And for the last time, that's the sports. Monty and Ann?
Thanks, Brian. When you think of the word race, you might think of cars or a quick run. We'll show you a different race that involves teamwork and perseverance.
Also, the opportunity to fly in a small plane is a thrill for young and old. We'll show you one man who took to the skies on an historical adventure. That's next.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it, 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
At the University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, classes have real-life application. Mentors guide students. Our work improves quality of life by answering tough questions with creativity and innovation. The University of North Dakota College of Engineering and Mines, training tomorrow's engineering and geology experts today.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
Most people don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. My time clock is around the clock. My ideas are fresh, but they need research and development. My business plan includes marketing strategies, legal documents, and a budget. My startup became possible through mentorship, hands-on experience, and learning from experts in the field. The Center for Innovation has contributed to more than 400 University of North Dakota student startups. Come with an idea. Leave with a business.
From the University of North Dakota, celebrating 25 years, this is Studio One.
That's a shot of our studio audience today. It's not just a race, it is an adventure. It takes a little bit of training, teamwork, and skill, but fun is usually the outcome.
This group is here to race. All ages and genders get the chance to compete in more than a quick run. They form a team and push each other through more than just miles.
It's fun. It's exciting. I enjoy it. I mean, it's better than doing it by yourself. So, I mean, when you do start getting miserable and stuff, it's better to be miserable together than alone. So,
the goal is not to be miserable, but to cross the finish line as a team. This is a 6-hour adventure race that involves mountain biking, trail running, and is all map and compass based.
So basically, racers know nothing about the course before they get here. We've just handed them their maps for where the first few checkpoints are, and they have to go find them.
As the race starts, each team uses their map to get to the next checkpoint. Their skills are being put to the test.
Bike, map work, stuff like that.
All ages are welcome. These girls get to integrate their hobbies into the race.
Rock climbing, soccer, run around.
One adult runs the race with them, acting as a chaperone. The adult can never help them to complete the race. Volunteers come together to give these competitors the opportunity to take a journey.
Devise a course that's going to inflict suffering on the racers, and also enjoyment, usually more in retrospect than during the race itself. That's kind of the fun of it.
So if you are a racer looking for biking, running, and some mystery challenges, the misery may be worth it. Once they cross the finish line, their suffering, hunger, and agony is over. With photographer Kelby Leek, I'm Jamie Eckert reporting for Studio One.
Extreme North Dakota Racing puts on a few races each year. Racers can try a mud run, marathon river swim, or even a 12-hour race. Some people are so impressed by Apple's CEO Tim Cook that they are willing to pay thousands of dollars to have coffee with him. This special coffee date is managed by an online auction site. Cook gets to share an hour of his time with 2 lucky winners. The proceeds go to the RFK Center for Justice and Human Rights. We asked people their thoughts on who they would pay big money to have coffee with.
Wayne Gretzky, because he's one of my hockey idols.
John Bon Jovi. Because the only place I've ever seen him is on stage live, and I paid a lot of money for his tickets, so I think for $1,000 he should have coffee with me.
I would pay a lot of money to have coffee with my great-grandmother, just because I never met her, and there's a lot of holes in our family history.
Justin Bieber I picked because he's hot.
Jesus, just because he's my savior.
And Khloe Kardashian, because she's honest about everything and funny.
I would say LeBron James because he's really awesome and good at basketball.
I would have coffee with Harper Lee. She is the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'm an English major, so I teach that book to some of my students.
I would pay money to have coffee with Hillary Rodham Clinton because I would like an opportunity to thank her for what she's contributed to our nation.
As temperatures rise, snow melts away and the feeling of spring is in the air. We found one community that celebrates the warmer air by taking to the skies.
In Grafton, North Dakota, today is the 10th annual fly-in.
Cheese. It gives you another dimension of freedom.
Flying fanatics come in all ages, young.
So I was kind of scared, but after when we got up in the air, I was really excited.
And experienced.
I do remember my first airplane ride.
This airfield is named after a man with many years of expertise in the cockpit.
I learned to fly as a cadet in World War II in the summer of 1944. Then I flew across the Atlantic Ocean to Tunis, Tunisia. And I was on my first mission for the invasion of southern France the next day.
Hod is 90. And today, his biggest concern is making sure the kids are having fun. 68 years ago, Commander Hod says he had a different worry.
The only time I didn't make it back, I landed, I had an engine out and airplane full of holes. I was 22 at the time.
It's because of airmen such as Hod that a pilot like Mike can take children up for rides on an April afternoon. Today, the mission is to take in the scenery as you fly high up in the sky. With photographer Ann Hook, I am Corey Robertson reporting for Studio One.
Hod doesn't fly by himself anymore, but whenever he does go up, he flies with his son. Public relations people write statements for companies they represent, while journalists write for news coverage. Next, we'll learn how these communication fields sometimes clash and what they have in common.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends.
You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
This scene is familiar, but you and your friends are at risk. 1 in 3 Americans will die from heart disease or stroke. Think about it, 1 in 3. Every day, more than 2,000 Americans die from cardiovascular disease. The Million Hearts Initiative works to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes. Understand the risks, get active, and reduce sodium and trans fats in your diet. It's a silent killer, but now is the time to take control of your health. Learn more about making a heart-healthy future.
My doctor tells me to play outside every day.
I see a physician assistant in my rural clinic. I'm glad that she's here.
But healthcare is changing.
Rural North Dakota communities face workforce shortages, particularly in primary care. The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences addresses the state's healthcare needs by educating the next generation of healthcare professionals. We advocate for improved health in rural communities.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
Spokespeople and journalists write to relay public information. However, the two parties still find themselves at odds from time to time. Susan Walton co-authored a book that highlights the intersections of PR people and journalists. Well, thank you so much for appearing on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, to start it off, what is the premise of your book?
Well, the premise of the book is that journalists and public relations people, the people who so often give them the information for the stories they're doing, work best and serve the public interest best when they have a good working relationship with each other. But this relationship isn't a given. Misperceptions often exist on both sides of the fence. For example, public relations people might think that journalists are always out to get them. And journalists sometimes view PR people as people who want to spin the story and varnish the facts. But my partner and I thought that this was a very important relationship worth building, and so we decided to write a book.
All right, so why did you want to address this issue really between PR spokespeople and journalists?
Well, when PR people and journalists work together well, everybody wins. Valuable information is given to the public and the public interest is served better. And besides that, journalists and PR people really need each other to do their jobs. The news industry, as you know, has undergone a significant contraction over the last few years. Some estimates say that newspaper reporters are down by 20,000 jobs in this country over the last 5 years. Journalists are doing more with fewer resources. They need reliable, capable, knowledgeable PR people to help them. And PR people need journalists. Journalists are the conduit to major media outlets. And when a journalist or an editor, we can self-publish, of course, we can do a blog or a tweet with our news, but when a journalist or an editor expresses an interest in your story and finds it newsworthy, that's a great compliment, and it adds a whole nother level of credibility to that story.
All right, well, the title of your book is Making It Work, Improving the Relationship Between Public Relations Spokespeople and Journalists. You know, tell me, is it that strained of a relationship?
It can be, and I remember very vividly the exact event that caused my writing partner, Professor Joel Campbell, a professional journalist and teacher, and I, to decide to write the book. I was lecturing to a small PR club and was using some examples about challenging PR situations that some of my colleagues had shared, and I was using their names with their permissions. After it was over, I got an email from a student who had been there, who then told me he was a reporter for the student paper and he was going to write a story about all this, and he wanted to do a follow-up interview. He was Professor Campbell's student, and I went to Professor Campbell because I was a little concerned. We had always taught our journalism students that when you're gathering information for a story, you identify yourself as a reporter. And I was concerned that my colleagues who had shared their stories with me weren't counting on those stories being in a newspaper with a 20,000 circulation and a global website. So we had a conversation about it, Professor Campbell and I, and it was an animated conversation. But in the end, we came up with a solution. The student wrote his story and I helped him, but he agreed not to use the names of my colleagues. Afterwards, we were really struck by the fact that we'd been able to come up with good common ground just by stepping back and looking at each other's point of view a little bit. And we figured if we could do it, anybody could.
And
so
it
we decided to write a book.
You guys reached a compromise.
We did.
Well, you go on into your book to discuss really, you know, Facebook and Twitter. Really, how are these technologies changing how PR and journalists work together?
Well, social media can, in fact, make it easier for PR people and journalists to live without each other. Journalists can take to the web to research stories and don't necessarily need to ask PR people for as much. PR people, as I mentioned before, can self-publish their own news. But I believe that if we ever got to the point where that exchange of information was completely virtual, we'd really lose something. That dialogue between journalists and PR people, whether it's face-to-face or simply voice-to-voice, is very important.
What was your favorite process of writing this book, from your experiences also as a PR person?
I think one of my favorite parts was a little section we had at the end of each chapter called He Says, She Says. And that was where, after everything else we laid out, I got to share my opinion, and Professor Campbell got to share his opinion on a variety of subjects. And we'd write everything else, and then we'd send these to each other. And opening up the email was from him was really exciting, because then I could finally see what he really thought about it and what his viewpoint was like relative to mine, and that was really interesting.
Well, that's perfect that you guys established to reach a compromise, and you published a very successful book. Well, thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're watching Studio One from the University of North Dakota. We'll be right back after this.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by NDAD, helping others to help themselves.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
Most people don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. My time clock is around the clock. My ideas are fresh, but they need research and development. My business plan includes marketing strategies, legal documents, and a budget. My startup became possible through mentorship, hands-on experience, and learning from experts in the field. The Center for Innovation has contributed to more than 400 University of North Dakota student startups. Come with an idea. Leave with a business.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends.
You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
That's our show for today, and we will be taking a bit of a break over the summer. We will be back this fall with more great stories to share with you.
And we're going to leave you now with pictures of our cast and crew. From all of us here at Studio One, have a great summer.